Marcus Chen had built what everyone called a successful life. Corner office on the 18th floor, luxury sedan in the parking garage, apartment in the city's trendiest neighborhood. At 34, he earned more in a month than many people saw in half a year. Yet on this particular Tuesday morning, standing in his deceased grandfather's dusty attic, he held a thin leather ledger that would shatter everything he believed about success. The handwriting was meticulous, almost obsessive. $50 every single month. Starting January 1995, Marcus flipped through page after page of identical entries, each one dated and recorded in the same careful script. His grandfather William had been a janitor at the municipal courthouse, a man who wore the same 3 shirts in rotation and drove a pickup truck older than Marcus himself. This couldn't be right. $50 a month wouldn't amount to anything significant. Marcus did the mental math quickly, dismissively. 50 times 12, times maybe 20 years before his grandfather passed. Maybe $15,000 total, probably sitting in some forgotten savings account collecting dust and minimal interest. But tucked inside the back cover was a business card, worn soft at the edges. Pemberton Investment Services. Marcus recognized the firm, one of the oldest wealth management companies in the state. Why would a janitor need a wealth management firm? Curiosity overtook skepticism. He pulled out his phone and dialed the number. The receptionist transferred him twice before an older gentleman's voice came on the line. Raymond Pemberton himself, apparently still working at 78. When Marcus explained who he was and what he'd found, there was a long pause on the other end. Then Raymond said something that made Marcus sit down hard on a cardboard box. Your grandfather's account is currently valued at $847,000. The phone nearly slipped from Marcus's hand. That was impossible. Completely impossible. He stammered questions, demanded explanations, suggested there must be some mistake. Raymond's response was measured, almost amused. No mistake, son. Your grandfather understood something most people never figure out. He understood that time was the only currency that actually mattered. 3 days later, Marcus sat across from Raymond in an office that smelled of leather and old wood. The investment broker spread documents across the mahogany desk, each one a window into a life Marcus had never truly known. William Chen had opened the account in January 1995, depositing $50 monthly without fail. Then Raymond pointed to something that made Marcus's stomach drop. The deposit stopped in December 2001, just 7 years of contributions. $50 times 84 months. $4,200 total. Marcus stared at the numbers, trying to make them make sense. $4,000 had somehow become $847,000. Raymond nodded slowly, reading the confusion on Marcus's face. Compound interest is often called the 8th wonder of the world for a reason. Your grandfather didn't just invest money. He invested time. 24 years of growth, reinvested dividends, market recoveries, all working while he mopped floors and emptied trash cans. But why did he stop contributing? Marcus needed to understand. Raymond pulled out another document, this one a letter written in that same meticulous handwriting. It was addressed to Raymond, dated December 2001. The letter explained that William had been offered a promotion to building supervisor, a position that would have doubled his salary. He was turning it down. The reasoning was stated with startling clarity. The extra income would be eaten by extra responsibilities, extra stress, and extra spending. He'd seen it happen to everyone who climbed that ladder. They earned more but saved less. Their wants expanded faster than their wallets. William had decided that his current lifestyle was sufficient, that the $50 monthly deposits had done their job, and that now his only task was to stay out of his own way and let time work its magic. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. He pulled out his own banking app, the one he checked obsessively, the one that showed his substantial salary hitting his account like clockwork. Then he looked at his investment accounts. The balance was $9,000. $9,000. He'd been earning a significant salary for nearly a decade, and somehow had less saved than his grandfather had contributed in just 7 years. The math was brutal and undeniable. Raymond seemed to sense the revelation happening across the desk. Your grandfather refused 4 promotions over the course of his career. Each time, people thought he was crazy. They said he lacked ambition. They couldn't understand why he'd settle for being a janitor when he could have been so much more. But William knew something they didn't. He knew that lifestyle inflation was the silent killer of wealth. Every raise came with an invisible price tag. A better car because you deserved it. A bigger house because you could afford it. Nicer vacations because you worked so hard. Before you knew it, that extra $1,000 a month in income generated $2,000 a month in new expenses. Marcus thought about his own trajectory. The promotions he'd celebrated. The salary bumps that had felt like validation. The apartment upgrade that seemed so reasonable at the time. The car lease that was just a reward for his hard work. He'd been earning more every year, yet somehow his bank account remained in that same frustrating holding pattern. Never quite building the wealth he kept promising himself was just around the corner. His grandfather, the man he'd pitied for his humble life, had quietly accumulated more wealth than Marcus might see in another decade of his supposedly successful career. The documents spread across Raymond's desk told another story, too. William had lived in the same modest house for 40 years. He'd driven vehicles until they literally couldn't be repaired anymore. He'd taken one vacation every 3 years, always to the same cabin upstate. His entertainment was the library and his garden. To outside observers, it looked like deprivation. But William's letters to Raymond revealed a different truth. He'd felt wealthy every single day because he knew what was growing silently in the background. He had security. He had options. He had freedom. The things Marcus chased through promotions and bigger paychecks, William had secured through discipline and patience. Raymond leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with an expression that mixed sympathy and something harder to define. Your grandfather left specific instructions about this account. It was to be revealed to you only after his death, and only with this conversation. He wanted you to understand that he didn't work his whole life as a janitor because he couldn't do better. He did it because he'd done the math and realized that chasing more income was a trap unless you'd already built the foundation. He wanted you to know that starting was the only thing that mattered, not earning more, not waiting for the perfect moment, not planning for someday, starting. Marcus drove home in silence, his luxury sedan suddenly feeling like evidence at a crime scene. That night he opened his laptop and looked at his expenses with new eyes. The streaming services he never watched. The gym membership he'd used twice in 6 months. The premium coffee subscription. The meal delivery service. The upgraded phone plan. Death by 1,000 small conveniences. Each one so reasonable in isolation, collectively bleeding him dry. His grandfather had seen this trap decades ago and had simply refused to step into it. The following Monday, Marcus requested a meeting with his boss. The conversation was brief and bewildering to everyone involved. Marcus was turning down a promotion he'd been working toward for 2 years. The raise would have been substantial, the title impressive, the office even bigger. But he'd finally understood what his grandfather had known all along. The real poverty wasn't earning less. It was spending more. The real stagnation wasn't staying in the same position. It was running faster on a treadmill that went nowhere. That afternoon, Marcus opened an investment account and set up an automatic transfer. Not $50. He could afford more than that. But the amount didn't matter nearly as much as the decision to finally begin. His grandfather's ledger sat on his desk now. A reminder that wealth wasn't built by the impressive career or the bigger paycheck. It was built by understanding that tomorrow never comes, that later never arrives, and that the most expensive thing you can do is convince yourself there's always time. William Chen had been the wisest man Marcus never knew, and his true legacy wasn't the money in that account. It was the lesson it represented. Pragmatism beats potential. Starting beats planning. And sometimes the person who refuses to climb is the only one who actually reaches the summit.